I was the black sheep until I won the lawsuit. Now the whole family is sorry. Being the black sheep means you were brave enough to build your own path while the rest of the herd stayed in the dark. Blood connects us, but only respect and loyalty make a family. Never let those who ignored your struggle claim a seat at your table once you've made it. The smell of expensive lilies is supposed to be soothing, but in my mother's foyer, it always felt like the scent of a funeral for someone who wasn't dead yet. I stood by the mahogany console table, my fingers tracing a deep scratch in the wood that I'd made with a toy truck 20 years ago. Back then, I was the difficult child, the one who didn't want to be a corporate lawyer like my brother Elias, or a pediatric surgeon like my sister Sarah. I was the one who wanted to build things, not out of prestige, but out of necessity. "You're late, Julian." My mother's voice drifted from the dining room. It wasn't a greeting, it was a tally mark on a scoreboard she'd been keeping since I'd dropped out of the pre-law track. "The traffic was heavy," I said, stepping into the light. The dining table was a sea of crystal and silver. Elias was checking his watch, his tailored suit jacket draped perfectly over his chair. Sarah was whispering something to her husband, laughing softly. When I sat down, the air in the room didn't just chill, it thinned. It was the feeling of being a ghost at your own dinner table. "We were just discussing the summer house renovations," Elias said, not looking up from his phone. "It's going to be a significant investment. I assume you're still between things, or is the workshop finally paying the bills?" He said the word workshop like he was describing a hobby for a toddler. In reality, I was working 18-hour days in a rented garage, pouring every cent of my savings into a prototype for a modular water filtration system designed for disaster relief. To them, I was just a mechanic who couldn't grow up. "I'm managing," I said quietly. "Managing," Sarah echoed, a thin smile on her lips. "Julian, Mom is getting older. We need to think about the family's image. It's hard to explain to our colleagues why our brother is covered in grease and living in a studio apartment in the industrial district. It's embarrassing." "It didn't realize my life was a PR crisis for you, Sarah," I replied, my voice steady, despite the familiar heat rising in my chest. My mother sighed, the sound of a woman martyred by her son's mediocrity. "It's not just the image, Julie. It's the waste of potential. We gave you the same start as the others. You chose to fail. At some point, we have to stop pretending that your projects are going to lead anywhere." That night was the beginning of the end. I had come there to ask for a small loan, not a handout, but a bridge to cover the final patent filing fees for the filtration system. A major NGO had expressed interest, but I needed the legal protections in place before I could sign the contract. I never got the chance to ask. As the dessert plates were cleared, Elias leaned forward. "Actually, Julian, we've made a decision. Since you're clearly struggling and can't contribute to the family estate's upkeep, we've decided to move forward with the trust restructuring without you. It's for the best. It protects the assets from being drained by failing ventures." "You're cutting me out?" I asked. The silence that followed was heavy with the scent of lilies and betrayal. "We're protecting the family," my mother said, her eyes fixed on her wine glass. "When you decide to get a real job, we can talk. Until then, maybe it's better if we have some space." I walked out of that house with nothing but my car keys and the crushing realization that my value to them was strictly transactional. I didn't see them for 3 years. I didn't call, and when I tried to text Sarah on her birthday, I saw the dreaded green bubble, the sign that my number had been blocked. I was the black sheep. I was the failure. I was the one they edited out of the Christmas card photos. But while they were busy curating their perfect lives, I was in that grease-stained garage, turning a prototype into a revolution. I didn't just get the patent. I caught a global manufacturing giant trying to steal my design. The lawsuit that followed didn't just make headlines. It made a fortune. For 3 years, I was a ghost. Then the news broke. Local inventor wins landmark $42 million settlement and royalties. Suddenly, my phone, the one that had been silent for 1,000 days, started to vibrate. The vibration of my phone on the wooden workbench sounded like a drill. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and for the first time in years, the air in my workshop didn't smell like desperation. It smelled like success, fresh ozone, and the metallic tang of new components. I looked down. A text message from Sarah. Jules? I just saw the news. Oh my God, I'm shaking. We've been so worried about you. Why didn't you tell us you were going through a legal battle? We would have helped. Please call me. I didn't reply. I set the phone face down and went back to my soldering iron, but the ghost of her concern stayed with me. We've been so worried. It was a lie so transparent it was almost insulting. They weren't worried when I was skipping meals to pay for patent filings. They weren't worried when my landlord threatened to evict me because I was 3 months behind on the garage rent. A few hours later, a call came through. Elias. Julian, my man! His voice was booming, hearty, as if we'd just grabbed drinks last week. Gone was the condescending tone of the corporate litigator. Now I was his peer. I saw the settlement figure in the journal. 42 million, Julian. And the royalties? You've played a hell of a long game. I have to admit, I underestimated the tech. Listen, we need to celebrate. Mom has been a wreck thinking about how we left things. A wreck? I asked, my voice dry. She seemed pretty composed when she told me to find a real job. There was a brief, microscopic pause. Well, you know how she is. Old school. She just wanted the best for you, even if she didn't know how to say it. Look, she's throwing a welcome home dinner this Sunday. The whole family. Just us. No lawyers, no business talk. Just family. You have to be there. We've missed you, brother. I looked around my workshop. My real job was now a multi-million-dollar enterprise. I had a team of 6 engineers and a legal department that had just brought a conglomerate to its knees. I didn't need their dinner. I didn't need their validation. But as I sat there, the memories of those 3 years of silence began to itch. I remembered the night I had a fever of 103 and no one answered my calls. I remembered the Christmas I spent eating a microwave burrito alone because I wasn't invited to the private family gathering at the ski resort. Sunday, I said. I'll be there. Great. I'll send you the address of the new place Mom moved into. It's gated, so I'll put you on the list. I hung up and felt a cold, clear clarity settle over me. They wanted a celebration, I would give them one. But first, I had some digital archaeology to do. I spent the rest of the week digging. I had kept my old phone, the one with the cracked screen, in a drawer. I charged it up. It took an hour to boot, but once it did, the history was all there. The messages I'd sent to the family group chat that went unanswered. The texts Sarah had sent to Elias, and accidentally to me once, calling me a bottom feeder and a drain on the legacy. The final message from my mother. Do not contact us until you can prove you aren't a failure. I spent Friday afternoon at a local print shop. I didn't want digital files. I wanted something tactile, something they couldn't delete or swipe away. I had them printed on high-quality, heavy cardstock. If my family loved prestige and image so much, I would give them the most prestigious evidence of their own cruelty they'd ever seen. I had them bound in small, elegant navy blue folders. They looked like wedding invitations or high-end menus. On Sunday evening, I pulled up to the gated community in a car that cost more than my father's first house. I wasn't trying to flaunt it. I was simply arriving as the man they had forced me to become. The house was a glass and steel monstrosity, cold and impressive. As I walked up the driveway, I could see them through the floor-to-ceiling windows. My mother, Sarah, Elias, and their spouses. They were holding wine glasses, laughing, the picture of a successful, united family. I felt like an actor stepping onto a stage. The moment I walked through the door, the air changed. It wasn't the thin, chilly air of 3 years ago. It was thick with desperate warmth. Julian! My mother hurried over, her silk shawl fluttering. She reached out to hug me, and for a second I smelled that same lily perfume. It made my stomach turn. My brave, brilliant boy, we are so proud of you. Proud? I asked, stepping back just enough to break the embrace. That's a new word for me. Oh, don't be like that, Sarah said, coming over to kiss my cheek. She smelled like expensive wine. We were just frustrated back then. We didn't understand your vision, but we always loved you. Is that right? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Well, I'm glad to hear it, because I brought something for everyone. A little memento of the years we spent apart. Elias clapped me on the back. Gifts already? You shouldn't have. Come, let's sit. Dinner is a roast, your favorite. I followed them to the table. It was set for 6. My place was at the head, the seat of honor, the seat of the winner. As we sat down, I reached into my leather briefcase and pulled out the navy blue folders. I placed one in front of each of them. Before we eat, I said, my voice calm and low, I'd like all of you to take a look at these. Think of it as a trip down memory lane. The dining room was silent, save for the rhythmic ticking of a minimalist clock on the wall. It was an expensive sound, precise, cold and counting down the seconds of their comfort. "What is this, Julian? A prospectus?" Elias asked, his fingers hovering over the edge of the navy blue folder. He gave a forced, jovial chuckle. "I told you, no business tonight. We're just here as family." "It's not business, Elias," I said, leaning back in my chair. "It's a record. Think of it as a family album. Go ahead. Open them." My mother was the first. Her manicured nails flicked the heavy cardstock open. I watched her eyes. They moved quickly at first, then slowed, then stopped. The color didn't just leave her face, it seemed to evaporate. Inside the folder, on the very first page, was a high-resolution screenshot of the last text she had sent me before I went dark. "Do not contact us until you can prove you aren't a failure. You are a drain on this family's dignity." Across the table, Sarah gasped. She had turned to the second page of her own folder. It contained a thread from a group chat, one I wasn't supposed to be in, but that Elias had accidentally added my old number to years ago before realizing his mistake. "Sarah, can we just tell Julian the guest list is full for the charity gala? I don't want to explain why my brother looks like he sleeps in a scrapyard." Elias: "Already did. Told him it was canceled. He's too pathetic to check anyway." The silence in the room was no longer cold. It was suffocating. "Julian," Sarah's voice was a whisper, a thin, wavering thread. This was years ago. We were stressed. You were making such poor choices, and we were just frustrated. It's not fair to bring this up now." "Poor choices?" I asked, my voice conversational, almost academic. "You mean the choices that led to a $42 million settlement? The scrap that is now providing clean water to 3 villages in South America? Those choices? We didn't know," my mother cried out, her voice cracking. She reached across the table, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled it back. "How were we supposed to know you were actually doing something? You were living in a garage, Julian. You looked like a vagrant." "So your love is contingent on my tax bracket? If the lawsuit had failed, if I were still in that garage, would you be throwing this dinner? Would Sarah have unblocked my number? Would Elias be calling me his man?" Elias closed his folder with a sharp thud. The mask of the supportive older brother was slipping, revealing the jagged edges of the man I remembered. "All right, Julian, you've had your fun. You've embarrassed us. You've made your point. We were wrong about the tech. We're sorry. Now, can we put these away and have dinner? We have a lot to catch up on. I've actually been looking at some investment opportunities that could really use your new capital." I started to laugh. It wasn't a bitter laugh, but one of genuine, weary amusement. There it is, the investment opportunities. You couldn't even wait for the main course, Elias. I stood up. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor, a harsh, grounding sound. "I didn't come here for the roast, sir. I didn't come here for the roast, and I certainly didn't come here to be an ATM for the people who treated me like a stray dog for 3 years. I came here to see if any of you had actually changed, to see if there was a single ounce of genuine regret in this room." "We are sorry," Sarah insisted, tears welling in her eyes. Whether they were tears of guilt or tears of losing access to my wealth, I already knew. "You're sorry I'm rich," I corrected her gently. "There's a difference." I picked up my briefcase. "Keep the folders. I have copies. Whenever you feel like reaching out to ask for a loan or an investment, I want you to open them to page 4. That's the page where Elias joked about how much easier life would be if I just stopped showing up to holidays." "Julian, please," my mother pleaded, standing up. "We're your family." "Family is a verb, Mom. It's something you do, not just something you are by blood. You stopped doing family a long time ago." As I walked out into the cool evening air, I heard the sound of a wine glass shattering inside. I didn't look back. I got into my car, the engine purring with a quiet, expensive power that felt nothing like the rattling truck I used to drive. I drove away from the gated community, away from the lilies and the lies. For the first time in my life, the weight in my chest wasn't there. The black sheep hadn't just found a new pasture, he'd built his own. The drive back to my apartment was the quietest 30 minutes of my life. The The city lights blurred into long, golden streaks against the rain-slicked pavement. For years, I had imagined this moment, the cinematic "I told you so." I thought it would feel like a roar, a surge of adrenaline. Instead, it felt like a long, deep exhale. When I reached my place, a space that was modern, filled with light, and entirely mine, I sat on the balcony overlooking the river. I didn't turn on the lights. I just watched the water. My phone began to buzz in my pocket. Buzz. A text from Sarah. "Julian, that was cruel. Mom is devastated. How could you do that to her?" Buzz. A notification from Elias. Missed call. Buzz. Another from Elias. "Let's talk tomorrow when you've calmed down. We're still family, and there are legal implications to some of the things you said tonight regarding the trust." I looked at the screen and felt nothing. No anger, no urge to defend myself. I simply swiped the notifications away and turned the phone off. The legal implications Elias mentioned were his way of trying to regain control. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that I didn't want a seat at their table anymore. He thought I was playing a game of leverage, but I had already won the only game that mattered. I didn't need them. Over the next few months, the Black Sheep label started to drift away, replaced by a new identity. I wasn't just the guy with the settlement, I was the founder of a company that was actually changing things. I spent my days in a new facility, one with high ceilings and a team of people who respected my mind long before they knew my net worth. I started a foundation, not to fix my family's image, but to provide micro-grants to independent inventors who were stuck exactly where I had been, in a garage, with a brilliant idea and no one to believe in them. Every time I signed a check for a young woman building a better solar cell or a kid designing a cheaper prosthetic, I felt a piece of my own past healing. I eventually unblocked my mother, not because I wanted to go back, but because carrying the silence was starting to feel like a chore. We met for coffee 6 months later, not at her house, but at a neutral, busy cafe. She looked older. The sharp, judgmental edge in her eyes had been replaced by a cautious, almost fragile curiosity. "I still don't agree with how you handled that dinner," she said, stirring her coffee. "It was public execution. It was the truth, Mom," I said gently. "The truth only feels like an execution when you've been living a lie." She didn't have an answer for that. We talked for an hour. We didn't talk about money, we didn't talk about the lawsuit, we talked about the weather and my new dog and the way the river looks in the morning. It was polite, it was distant, it was the best we could do. As I walked away from that cafe, I realized that I had finally stopped waiting for them to be the family I wanted. I accepted them for the people they were, flawed, status-driven, and limited. And in that acceptance, I was finally free. I realized that being the black sheep isn't a curse. It just means you're the one who refused to follow the herd over the cliff. It means you were brave enough to find your own path, even when it was dark and lonely. I sat in my car looking at a photo of my team at the new factory. We were all covered in dust, grinning, holding the first production model of the filtration unit. That was my family. The people who stood by me when the water was muddy, not just when it turned to gold. I started the engine and headed home. The sun was setting, casting a warm, amber glow over the world. I wasn't a ghost anymore. I was finally, vibrantly alive. Looking back, I don't regret handing out those folders. Some people think peace comes from silence, but I believe true peace only comes after the truth has been spoken. It wasn't about revenge. It was about drawing a line in the sand and saying, "This is where the disrespect ends." I learned that blood makes you related, but loyalty, respect, and consistency make you family. If you're currently the black sheep of your family, keep building your workshop. One day, the very people who look down on you will wonder how you climbed so high. But tell me, if you had been in that dining room, would you have handed out those folders, or would you have just walked away in silence? Let me know in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us tell more stories like this one.